This sounds like the start of a bad joke, but I swear it actually happened. My straight roommate Jesse, yes, the one with the six-pack and the cocky grin, lost a bet. And somehow that bet ended with him sleeping naked in my bed. Not his, mine. And not just sleeping. It all started with Mario Kart. Yeah, Mario Kart. You'd think we were 12. But no, we're two grown-ass men in our mid-20s. Both broke grad students, living in a 2-bedroom apartment just off campus. Jesse and I have been roommates for about 8 months, and from day one, we clicked. Not in a romantic way, at least not on his side. He was the definition of straight frat boy energy, always bringing girls over, always shirtless, always tossing a football to himself in the hallway for no reason. Meanwhile, I kept it chill. I worked, I studied, and I minded my business. I may have developed a tiny crush along the way, but I never acted on it. Jesse was safe. Jesse was unattainable. Or so I thought. Anyway, we had this tradition of settling dumb arguments with a Mario Kart deathmatch. No rematches, no excuses. Winner takes bragging rights, loser takes the dare. That night, Jesse had been talking shit all day about how no one beats him on Rainbow Road. I'd had a rough week. 2 deadlines, 3 rejections, and a call from my ex that left me spiraling. So I wasn't in the mood to let him win. And I didn't. The second he flew off the track and I crossed the finish line in first, I dropped the controller with a grin and turned to him. "You lost, pretty boy," he groaned dramatically, head falling back on the couch. "Ah, no way. Rematch. Nope, you know the rules." "Fine," he muttered. "What's my punishment?" I don't know what possessed me to say it. Maybe it was the beer. Maybe it was the adrenaline. Maybe it was all those months of quiet tension between us. But I looked him dead in the eye and said, "You have to sleep naked tonight." He raised an eyebrow. "That's it?" In my bed. There was a pause. His smirk faltered. "Wait, why your bed?" I shrugged, playing it cool, because it's funnier that way. He stared at me for a second, like he was trying to decide if I was serious. And then, like the little chaos demon he was, he grinned. "All right," he said, standing up. "Let's do it." Jesse disappeared into his room, and for a second, I thought he'd chicken out. I mean, we joked a lot, yeah. But this was a new level. Even for him. I sat on the edge of my bed, phone in hand, pretending to scroll, while my heart pounded hard enough to make me dizzy. Then I heard his door open. He stepped out wearing nothing. Nothing but that ridiculous grin and a pair of socks. He didn't look shy. In fact, he looked way too comfortable. "You better not make it weird," he said, rubbing the back of his neck like he was trying not to laugh. "This is purely for the integrity of the bet." I raised both eyebrows. "Oh yeah, integrity. Got it." He climbed into my bed like it was totally normal, yanking the comforter over himself while trying not to flash me. I caught a glimpse, though, enough to make my ears burn. I turned off the overhead light and tried not to die on the spot. "Dude," he muttered, once we were both lying flat on our backs, inches apart. "This is kinda hilarious." "Yeah," I said, my voice barely working. "Hilarious." We stared at the ceiling for a beat too long. The silence stretched, filling the room with that thick electric tension you only notice when you're acutely aware of someone's bare skin just a few inches away. Then Jesse spoke again. "I've never shared a bed with a guy before." I laughed once, nervously. "Me neither. I mean, I've shared beds, just not like this." He chuckled, and it shook the mattress a little. "Well, hey, if I wake up spooning you, just know it's muscle memory or whatever. Don't read into it," I nodded. "Sure." But I was already reading into it. Hell, I'd been reading into Jesse since the day we moved in, and he walked around the kitchen in sweatpants, shirtless, cracking eggs like some damn Instagram thirst trap. I tried to keep still, to breathe evenly. But sleep wasn't happening. Not with him beside me. Not with the heat radiating off his body. Not with the faint scent of his body wash lingering in the air. I rolled to face the wall, giving him my back. That felt safer. A few minutes passed. Then I felt the mattress shift again. Then, his arm. It draped over me. Lightly. Hesitantly. Like he wasn't sure he was even doing it. I froze. His bare chest pressed up against my back. His breath slow and warm against the back of my neck. I thought, maybe he's asleep. Maybe this is just sleep movement, just what he warned me about. Then he whispered, low and close enough to make my skin prickle, "Still awake?" I didn't move. I didn't breathe. "Yeah," I finally murmured. He didn't say anything at first. His fingers rested on my stomach, not quite moving, but not letting go either. "Is this weird?" he asked, his voice quieter this time. "Little bit," I admitted. "Kind of." And then Jesse did something that left my brain blank for a solid 10 seconds. He leaned in and pressed his lips to the back of my neck. The second his lips touched the back of my neck, my whole body went rigid. It wasn't just a quick, joking peck. It wasn't a bro thing. It was slow, intentional, soft in a way that told me he knew exactly what he was doing. And then, nothing. He didn't say anything, didn't move. He just let that moment hang there between us like a live wire. I turned slightly, just enough to glance over my shoulder. "Jesse." "Yeah?" His voice was quiet. No smugness, no laughter. Just a hint of something I couldn't quite name. Vulnerability, maybe. I swallowed. "What was that?" He exhaled. A slow, shaky breath that warmed the space between us. "Well, I don't know," he said. "I wasn't planning to do that." "Okay, but why did you?" His fingers shifted on my stomach, not pulling away, not pushing further, just resting there. "I don't know," he said again, but softer this time. "I think maybe I've been curious. For a while." I turned fully to face him now. The comforter shifted between us, but I couldn't focus on anything except his face. His eyes were darker than usual, not with anger or mischief, just that same vulnerable confusion I felt mirrored in myself. "You've been curious?" "Yeah," he said, biting his bottom lip for half a second. "And you're easy to be around. It doesn't feel weird with you." That hit me in the chest harder than I expected. I wasn't expecting tenderness. Not from Jesse. "I didn't think you saw me that way," I said, heart thudding. "I didn't either," he admitted. "Not at first. But I started noticing things. How you always smell good after the shower. The way you look when you laugh. I don't know, man. It just got stuck in my head." I was stunned. For months I'd been careful, quiet, hiding everything I felt because I thought there was no chance. And now he was right here. Naked. In my bed, saying that. "And this?" I asked, motioning to the space between us. "This started as a joke," he said. "But now I'm wondering if I wanted to lose that bet." I couldn't help it. I laughed under my breath, more from disbelief than anything else. "You're full of surprises," I said. He smiled. "You haven't seen anything yet." There was a beat of silence, but it didn't feel awkward. It felt heavy, charged, like we were standing at the edge of something neither of us could see clearly. Then he leaned in again. This time, he didn't kiss my neck. He kissed me. Slow, cautious, but definitely not uncertain. And I kissed him back. His hand moved up to the side of my face, his thumb brushing my cheek like he'd done this 100 times before. It was surreal, it was warm, and it was very real. When we finally pulled apart, he rested his forehead against mine. "I guess the bet's paid," he whispered. "Not even close," I whispered back, and neither of us got much sleep that night. The sunlight crept in through the blinds before I was ready for it. My body was warm, wrapped in the heavy comforter, and him. Jesse's arm was still slung across my waist, his chest pressed against my back like we'd been locked together all night. Which, apparently, we had. For a few blissful seconds, I didn't move. I just let myself exist in that feeling. His slow, steady breathing, the weight of his bare body against mine, the way his fingers twitched gently in his sleep. Then he stirred. I could feel the shift in his breathing before I even heard his voice. A quiet groan, a stretch, and then a very soft "oh shit." I held my breath. He slowly pulled his arm back and sat up, rubbing his eyes. I turned slightly to look at him, his hair a total mess, his jaw lined with stubble, and the covers slipping dangerously low across his hips. "Morning," I said, trying to sound casual. My heart, meanwhile, was pounding like a war drum. He blinked down at me. His expression was unreadable for a second. Then he said, yeah, I echoed. "We did." Jesse ran a hand through his hair, then glanced toward the ceiling. "That wasn't just a weird dream, huh?" "Nope." He didn't look panicked, just like he was processing. "Did I?" he started, then trailed off. "Was I too much?" "No," I said quickly, sitting up slightly. "You were... Look, I don't regret anything. Do you?" He looked at me, and I could see it. The war in his head. Fear, curiosity. Something else too. Then he shook his head. "No," he said, "I don't." We sat there in silence for a moment. My room was suddenly way too bright, the sounds of traffic outside feeling louder than usual. "So what now?" he asked, still not looking at me. "I don't know," I admitted. "Do you want to talk about it?" He finally met my eyes. "Yeah, I think I do." I pulled the comforter around my waist and shifted to face him more fully. "Okay, then let's talk." Jesse exhaled slowly. "This wasn't just about the bet. I mean, yeah, that's what started it. But I've been thinking about you for a while." I swallowed. "Yeah?" "Yeah," he said. "I just didn't know what it meant. I still don't fully. I've never been with a guy, or thought about being with one, really, until lately." I nodded, giving him space, letting him find the words. "I guess I thought I was just messing with you at first," he continued. "Like, harmless flirting. But then I caught myself actually wondering what it'd be like if you kissed me back." "I wondered that a lot too," I said quietly. He gave a small, self-deprecating laugh. "I figured. You always looked at me like you wanted to say something but didn't. Because I didn't want to scare you off." "Well," he said, glancing down at the sheets between us, "I think I scared myself first." We sat with that truth for a minute. Then he reached out, his hand finding mine under the covers. "I don't know what this is yet," he said, "but I want to figure it out, if you're okay with that." I squeezed his hand. "I am." He nodded once. Then, after a beat, he smirked. "So, technically, I still slept naked in your bed. Dare completed." I rolled my eyes. "You know that was just an excuse, right?" "Oh, definitely," he said, that cocky grin returning full force. "But you didn't seem to mind." I laughed, because he was right. And for the first time in a long time, the tension in my chest eased. We weren't roommates anymore. Not really. We were something else now. And I couldn't wait to see what that turned into. The next few days felt like some weird in-between space, somewhere between roommates and whatever the hell that night was. Jesse and I didn't talk about it constantly, but we didn't ignore it either. There were these moments, quiet ones, where our fingers would brush on the couch and neither of us would move away. Or when he'd sit a little too close during a show, his thigh pressed against mine, and I'd feel him glance at me just to see if I noticed. I always noticed. And I think that was the difference now. We were both noticing. But the real test came the following Friday night. We were invited to a house party. Usually Jesse would go solo or with a date. I'd tag along sometimes, hang in the kitchen, maybe sip a beer and scroll my phone until it was late enough to leave without seeming rude. But this time, he walked into the living room while I was getting ready and said, casually, "You coming with me tonight?" I paused. "Yeah, you?" He gave me this look. Not going without you, my heart jumped, but I played it cool. All right then. We showed up a little late, the house already pulsing with music, and warm bodies shoulder to shoulder. The usual crowd was there, some of Jesse's friends from undergrad, a few people I vaguely knew from classes or mutual friends, and almost immediately, I noticed it. The way Jesse stayed near me, not hovering, but present. Like he didn't want too much space between us. Like he wanted people to see us together. I'd been to enough of these to know how he usually acted. He'd be the life of the party, bouncing between beer pong and the girl with the best laugh, completely in his element. But tonight, he turned down 2 shots and didn't flirt once. And at one point, while we were standing on the back patio, he leaned a little closer and said under his breath, "You good?" I nodded. "Yeah, just different vibe tonight." He looked around, then back at me. "Yeah, because I'm not pretending anymore." I stared at him, stunned for a second, but he didn't give me time to dwell. He just smiled and casually bumped my shoulder with his. Inside, someone was starting a game of Flip Cup and calling for more players. Jesse looked at me and raised a brow. "Want to destroy some freshmen?" "Obviously," I said. We moved to the table, but I caught something as we walked away. A girl near the kitchen, whispering to her friend while looking directly at us. She wasn't subtle. Neither was the way her friend muttered, "Wait, are they?" That's when I realized it. People were noticing. And honestly, that used to scare me. But with Jesse's arm brushing mine and his smirk daring me to care, I didn't feel scared. I felt seen. We ended up staying late, not because we were having the time of our lives, but because it felt easy, comfortable. The kind of night where you realize something has shifted and you're okay with it. When we got back home, the apartment felt unusually quiet. Jesse dropped his keys in the dish by the door and turned to me. "You want to crash?" he asked. It wasn't really a question. We both knew what he meant. "Yeah," I said. "Your bed or mine?" He gave me that stupid, smug grin. "Mine's closer." I'd just kicked off my shoes when there was a knock at the door. It was almost midnight. Jesse and I were standing in the kitchen, quietly cracking open cans of seltzer, still riding that weird high from the party. We looked at each other in silence. Another knock, louder this time. "I swear to God," Jesse muttered, setting his drink down. "If it's Marcus trying to crash here again." He pulled open the door and froze. I leaned to the side to see what was going on, and there she was, Maya. Tall, blonde, and standing there in a denim jacket and too much perfume. Eyes wide like she hadn't really expected him to answer. "Hi," she said. Jesse didn't say anything. Can I come in?" He stepped halfway into the doorway, clearly blocking her from just walking in. "It's late, Maya." "I know," she said, her voice soft. "But I was nearby, and I've been thinking about us." Shit. I stayed quiet, still in the kitchen, not wanting to make it worse, but also not willing to disappear just so she could pretend I wasn't here. "There is no us," Jesse said finally, his voice low. "Not anymore." She blinked, her expression flickering. "You said we could still talk." That was before things changed. Her gaze darted past him, and she spotted me. "Oh," she said, "you have someone here." I met her eyes, didn't look away. "Yeah," Jesse said, "I do." She turned her focus back to him, voice suddenly sharp. "So this is why you've been ignoring my texts?" "It's not about ignoring you," Jesse said. "It's about me not wanting to send the wrong message." "You sure you're not just confused?" He stepped back slightly but didn't let her in. "No, I was confused for a long time. Not anymore." Maya's jaw tightened. She gave a little laugh. Cold, defensive. "Wow, okay. I guess I didn't expect to lose you to a guy who wears mismatched socks." I looked down at my feet. Shit, they were mismatched. I opened my mouth to say something, probably to make a joke, maybe to diffuse the tension, but Jesse beat me to it. "Don't," he said to her, his voice firm now. "Don't talk about him like that." Maya's eyes narrowed. "Fine, you've made your choice." She turned without another word and walked away. The door clicked shut. For a second, neither of us moved. Then Jesse turned around slowly, rubbing his hand over his face. "Shit. Sorry," I said, even though I wasn't sure what I was apologizing for. He shook his head. "Don't be. That was long overdue." I nodded, stepping closer. "You okay?" He looked up at me, and something shifted in his face. Relief, maybe. Or something like it. "Yeah," he said. "Actually, I think I am." I wasn't sure what to say, but I didn't need to say anything. He stepped in, wrapped his arms around my waist, and pulled me into him. His forehead rested against mine. "She was right about the socks, though," he said quietly, a small smirk pulling at the corner of his mouth. I laughed into his chest. "You're lucky I like you." He pressed his lips against my hair. "I really am." Later that night, we didn't go straight to bed. We just stood there, in the middle of the living room, barely lit by the soft glow from the kitchen. Neither of us said much. We didn't have to. Jesse reached out and took my hand, gently tugging me toward his room like he wasn't asking. He was inviting. No rush, no assumptions. Just that quiet look in his eyes that said, "If you want this, I do too." And I did. We slipped into his bed wordlessly, like it was the most natural thing in the world. This time, we weren't wrapped in jokes or dares or awkward first touches. This time, it was intentional. He laid back, one arm behind his head, the other resting lightly on his stomach. The covers were bunched around our waists, the room warm with the scent of laundry detergent and the faint remains of his cologne. "Come here," he whispered. I moved in close, resting my head against his shoulder. He kissed the top of my head like it was instinct, like he'd been waiting to do it forever. His hand trailed slowly up and down my arm, absent-minded, comforting, and honestly kind of intoxicating. "This feel weird to you?" he asked after a few minutes. I shook my head. "No, not weird," he nodded. "Yeah, me neither." A silence settled between us again, but this time it was filled with warmth. I didn't feel tense. I didn't feel like I had to guard myself. For once, I wasn't wondering if I was imagining things. "This whole bet thing," he murmured. "I think I just needed a reason." To do what? To stop hiding how I feel. I lifted my head a little to look at him. He was staring at the ceiling, jaw tight like he was bracing for something. "I used to joke around with you," he said. "Mess with you. All that stupid flirtation. But it stopped being a joke a long time ago. I just didn't know how to deal with it." I let that sit between us for a moment before replying. "You don't have to deal with it alone." He looked at me then, really looked at me. His eyes were soft, searching. "I don't want to anymore." That was all it took. Our lips met again, and this time, it wasn't hesitant. It was slow and deep and completely unguarded. There was nothing performative about it. No testing the waters. Just two people who'd stopped running from something that had been there all along. His hands moved to my waist, pulling me closer, and I didn't resist. I shifted over him, straddling his lap under the sheets, feeling the heat of his body press against mine in ways that made my skin burn and my mind go blank. We didn't rush it. We took our time. We kissed until we were out of breath. We touched like we were trying to learn every inch of what we'd spent so long pretending not to want. And when things finally crossed that last line, when we let go, fully, completely, nothing about it felt reckless. It felt right. Afterward, we stayed tangled up together, the room quiet except for the hum of the ceiling fan and the sound of his heartbeat under my ear. "Still think this started with a stupid game," he whispered. I laughed into his chest. "Best loss of your life. No contest." We didn't say the word relationship. Not yet. But it was there. Unspoken. Waiting. For now, being in each other's arms was enough. I woke up before him. Not on purpose. Just that kind of accidental early morning where the light through the blinds feels too warm and your body knows it's morning before your brain does. Jesse was still asleep, one arm flopped over my chest like he belonged there, which maybe he did now. His face was soft, relaxed, a total contrast from the cocky expressions he wore around everyone else. In sleep, Jesse looked almost boyish, unguarded. It made something tighten in my chest in a way I wasn't prepared for. And yet, I didn't want to move. So I didn't. I just laid there, watching him breathe, tracing patterns on his shoulder with the tip of my finger. Eventually, he stirred. He grumbled, face burrowing closer to my neck. Too early. It's past 10, I whispered. He groaned. Kill me, I laughed quietly. Not how I thought you'd go out. Naked. Cuddling. He cracked one eye open. Best way to die, honestly. He shifted onto his side, eyes still heavy with sleep, and just looked at me. You good? Yeah, I said. You? He nodded. Better than good. We stayed in bed way too long, until our stomachs protested, and we had to get up. He tossed me one of his hoodies, and I pulled it on over my boxers while he threw on sweatpants and nothing else, as usual. We made pancakes. Jesse burned half of his. I didn't let him live it down. But the real moment came when someone knocked at the door around noon. It was Kyle, one of Jesse's oldest friends. Tall, gym rat energy, the kind of guy who wore tank tops in February. He barged in, like always, mid-sentence. Yo, Jesse, are we still? Then he stopped. His eyes darted between us. I was standing at the counter, drinking coffee in Jesse's hoodie. Jesse was barefoot, shirtless, and leaning against the kitchen table with that stupid smirk like he was daring Kyle to say something. It was obvious. Kyle blinked. Ah! Jesse didn't flinch. What's up, man? Kyle pointed between us. Are you guys like? Jesse shrugged, then looked at me before answering. Yeah. It hit me like a punch, in a good way. Not a maybe. Not a joke. Not a brush off. Just, yeah. Kyle stood there, stunned. Then he laughed once and shook his head. Damn. I definitely didn't see that coming. Jesse grinned. Yeah, neither did I. After Kyle left, still shaking his head in disbelief, Jesse turned to me, sliding his arms around my waist from behind. You okay? He murmured. I nodded. You? He kissed the side of my neck. I just told one of my oldest friends I'm into my roommate. I think I'm officially out. I laughed. Soft launch, huh? Hard launch is coming, he said, smirking. Pun intended. I groaned and swatted at him but didn't move out of his arms. We stayed like that for a while. The kitchen was quiet, the morning sunlight pouring in like it had been waiting for us to stop pretending. Jesse lost a bet, but I think we both ended up winning something way better.